Hey guys, today we're going to create the iOS 8 lock screen in Pixate. Now, since the lock screen has a lot going on, we're going to break up this tutorial into 5 parts. This part is going to focus on the slide to unlock and keypad panels that you see on the main screen. In later versions, we're going to do the emergency call page, the medical ID page, and both the control centers and the notification centers. Now I'm building this on a iPhone 5S, so the screen resolution will only work. This is only going to work if you have a phone of that size. If you have a 6, you're going to have to create new assets and figure out the positioning for some of these assets and their animations. I'm sorry, I don't have a 6. So, but if you have access to a screen, a 5 or a 5S, I would recommend building it on this. At least that you will better understand how this is done, and then you can recreate it on any other device that you want. I've linked to a PSD file that you can open and pull out some of those assets. If you want to use a different background, you can change it, re-export the asset under the same name, and just place it in, and it'll automatically update. But keep in mind that if you do that, there's not just the background. You'll have to update the blurred background and some of the notification center backgrounds and the control center backgrounds, because all of those have a low opacity on them, so they kind of shine through, and so you have to recreate some of those. The way that I did it is I just took a lot of screenshots on my phone and cut them out and cut them to size and pasted them in. So in this portion, we're going to recreate the paging animation that Pixate offers, but in our own way, to allow for animations to occur over the duration of the paging event, creating movement animations based off of drag positions, fade animations based off drag positions, and we're even going to create some of the keypad button animations that you see here. So let's get started. So here we've got our blank slate. Over here in the assets panel, I've got every asset that we're going to use throughout all of the tutorials. There's a lot, but we're going to start with just a few of them today. So first thing we're going to do is place our background. I've already got this created. We're going to place it to 0, 0. And as the lock screen animates, a blurred background comes in. And the way that I created this is actually, we're going to place this on top and turn it down to 0. Now we're going to create an animation that as we move, it's going to fade in, just kind of come in like this, and fade out. Oh, yeah. So as we have these, what we're going to do is actually create a movable container for the keypad and the slide to unlock panel. We're going to create what's called a shell container. Now, a shell container is just a layer. It's just an asset. You just create it by creating a new layer, but we're going to turn it to transparent. But first we're going to resize it. So what we need to do is essentially this panel needs to be twice the width of our screen, because it's going to sit on top, and as we drag it, it's going to move across. So whatever's on this side, as we drag, will slide into view. So we're going to set it over here. We want it to start on this position. This is where the slide to unlock and the clock is going to be. So we're going to create that and make sure this is 640 by 568. It's going to be transparent, and we are going to want to drag this. So we're going to drag a drag interaction over here, and we're going to set this to horizontal. We only want it to be horizontal. So we'll come back in a minute and set these constraints. But first, inside of this container, we're going to place 2 assets. We're going to do our slide to unlock and the keypad. So let's find the slide to unlock. I'll drag this in here. Place this at 0, 0. And then our keypad, we'll place this here. Now we need to place them inside of this container. So right now this container is just a layer. We're going to use this to make a group. So just click and drag it in here. So now our shell can move based off of when we drag it, but it doesn't reposition or page the way we want it to. So typically, if I were to drag this, and this is horizontal center right here, if I were to drag it past a position, it would complete this animation and bounce over. Same way working back, if I were to come over here and let go, it would bounce over. So we're going to have to recreate this. We're going to do this using a move animation. And it's going to involve some conditions. So let's call this move on drag release. And it's going to be based on slide to unlock containers, drag release. The reason it's drag release and not drag start is because we only want it to work. We want to be able to slide freely and then let go and have it do its work. If it was drag start, it would instantly just jump over. So we have it with duration to final value. I'm going to have to come in here and add this condition. So we're going to come up here, copy this layer ID, and you can copy this, you can type it. This is kind of long, so it's easier to just paste it. We're going to do .cx, so we're going to take its center axis, and if it is less than 120 pixels in, we're going to move the horizontal center to 100 or to 0. So now if we pull over here, this center comes past 120, we pop it right back over to 0. There's an ease out quadratic animation, but we're going to do 0.3 seconds, and then 0.2. And then we're going to make it so that the reverse drag works the same way, just in the opposite direction. So we're going to post this, paste this, at CX, and if it's greater than position 120, we're going to move the horizontal center to 320, so it resets. We're going to do an ease out quadratic, same animation, 0.3. So now, if I pull over and drag here, this will bounce back, but if I let it go past, it'll bounce over. Same with here. If I pull over, let go, it'll come back. But if I release it before, it'll bounce back to its original position. So iOS has a blurred background that we placed in here earlier that comes in based off of your swiping over to the right. As you pull over to the keypad, it fades in, or the background blurs, and as you pull over, it goes back to normal. So we're going to create that. We've already got it placed, and we have it at 0 opacity. And we're going to add a fade animation and make it fade in as we drag it. So what we'll do is we'll put this in, I call this fade in and out with on position. It's going to be based on the position's drag position. And it's going to go continuously to the final value. We're going to do it from the right edge when it's at 320. When it moves all the way off screen, a whole nother screen length over to 640. We're going to make it fade up to 100%. So we're going from 0 to 100 when we go from here out to here. As we drag, now it fades in, and it fades out. Now earlier I was talking about how with the normal paging and even with the paging styles that we just recreated, animations that are based off of your paging only complete if you move your finger across the entire pixel platform. So you can see if I pull in and I let go, this background stops fading in. But if I reactivate it, it recognizes its position and jumps right back in. So if you're showing a client this or trying to recreate this with accuracy, just keep in mind that if you're doing a fading position, no matter what it can be, from a small block in the middle to what we did from edge to edge, you need to drag your finger from edge to edge. It's kind of annoying. Hopefully this is something that Pixate will recognize and update, but for now, this is the way it works. So now that we've got this set up, we're going to come and add in the swipe bars. iOS has these swipe bars on the top and the bottom that move based off the animation. So as you drag, they pull out off screen, and if it releases, they kind of come back up. These are meant to let you know that there's a control center and a notification center, which we are going to build later, but for now we're just going to place these bars. I'll come into the asset center, and we're going to start with the bottom one first. We're going to place this. We want it to be placed right in the middle. So 145. And we're going to place this all the way down at 551. We don't want this to be inside the slide to unlock shell container because it's going to be moving independently. If we placed it inside the container, it would slide with us as we dragged. So we want it to move. We do want it to move, but we want it to move independently of this. So it's going to be placed outside on top. And we're going to make a move animation right here. It's going to be moved based on the slide to unlock shell containers drag position. So we want it to go off as we move, but if we go back, it'll come right back up. And it's going to be continuously to the final value. So just like with the blur background, we're just going to make this the same. We're going to reference the right edge, going from 320 to 640. So then as we move it from one end to the other, it's going to completely animate. And we're going to move its top down off the screen. The screen goes down to 568. We're going to move it down to 570, just so that it moves a little bit faster. So then as we drag, it goes off. Great. We're going to do the same thing for the top. Pull this out. Move to 145, right in the center. And the top is going to be at 10. That's perfect. We're going to do the same thing. Add a move animation. We're going to do it the opposite direction. So it's going to be based off the shell's drag position, continuously to final value. Same thing. We're going to set 320 to 640. Reference this right edge. We're going to move this to -8. So it's going to go up off the screen into the negatives. So now as we drag, these both go off at similar speeds, just like that. Perfect. So now that we've got the slide to unlock screen set up, we're going to focus on the touchpad. So we've got this on here. What we're going to do is create buttons so that when you tap on them, they will show up. Unfortunately, Pixate doesn't have the option to create a button that will stay on as you hold it and then release or turn off when you release. So we're going to have to do this based off timed animations. The easiest way for us to do this is to group them up. So we're going to create a new layer, put this in here, and we're going to name it keypad pressed. We'll position this just so that it's easy for us to place these as this full size of the screen. There we go. So 320 by 568. And we're going to set it to transparent. Then we're going to have to come in here and place all of our buttons. We're going to place them first, we're going to place them on the canvas, and then we're going to have to put them all inside of this group. So we'll just place them in the general position. And after we've got them placed and set inside their group, we'll place them on the proper coordinates. Okay. So now we'll place them inside this group. And I will make sure that they're aligned properly. Now, we want these to start at 0, and we're going to create buttons on top of them, invisible buttons, so that when we tap them, the subsequent pressed numbers will illuminate and then dim down. So as we place them on the proper coordinates, we're going to turn each one down. So number 9 is going to be placed at 218. 339. We'll turn it down. 8 is at 123, so 339. turn it down. 7 is at 28, 339. We'll turn it down. 6 is going to be at 218 and 251. Turn it down. 5 will be placed at 123, 251. Turn it down. 4 is at 28, 251. 3 is going to be placed at 218, 163. 2 is at 123, 163. 1 is at 28, 163. Let's make sure these are all good. Yep. And 0 is going to be 123 and 427. Turn it down. So now we're going to add the invisible buttons. We're going to basically almost recreate this, but we're going to add layers and make them invisible and lay them on top. So we'll create a new layer, bring it down in here. Just like the last time, we're going to resize it, make it transparent, and we'll rename this keypad buttons. I'm going to create another new layer. I'm going to size this down to 75 by 75. Because that's the size of these keypad buttons. I'll place this inside here. I'm going to rename this button 1. And you can place them kind of roughly over if you want. They don't have to be exact, but the closer the better. And don't forget to make them transparent. So now we have this button that's overlaying on top of this. You can duplicate these, so we'll have 10 of them. And then just start placing them. So this one will be 0. Actually, this one, try to place these so they're in similar order. This one will be 9, this top one. This will be 8. Place this over 7. 6. 5. 'These don't have to be in the same order. It's just kind of easier to keep track of what you're doing this way. But you can do it whichever way works for you. Oops. 3. 2. And we're going to make 1 for 0, so we'll duplicate this again. Just going to bring it down. And we'll have to move it out with the keyboard and then drag it down since it's the last layer. And then we are going to add a tap interaction to each and every one of these. Just drag each one. So that way when we tap them, we're going to make the layers and the keypad buttons below them animate based off the tap. 7. 9. Great. So now each one is tappable. And currently they don't have any animation attached to them. Like, you come over here and I can tap them. And it's recognizing that I'm tapping them, but there's no action associated with it. So we're going to have to come back to these buttons and add a fade in animation to each one. So we're going to add a fade in animation and then a fade out. The way that the iOS one works is it comes on instantly. So fade in, this is keypad 9, so we're going to base it off button 9, tap with duration. So we start at 0, we're going to fade up to 100, and this is instant. So we'll just do this. So now you can see, if I go on 9 and I tap, there it is. Now we want it to fade out, so we're going to use another one. I'm going to bring this in, fade out. And the way we're going to do this is it's going to be based off the same button. So once you tap it, fade it back out to 0, still be linear, a duration of 2 seconds, and we're going to make it so that it starts after 1/10 of a second. So you can tap it and then instantly, almost instantly fades out. Enough time for you to move your finger away and see it. We're going to do this for every single button. It takes a little bit of time, but it's worth it. So the easiest way that I do this is I just come in. I know I'm going to need 2, so I'll just drag 2 in each one. It would be nice if Pixate had the option to copy and duplicate interactions and animations, but currently they don't have that. So we have to do it the slow way. So I'm just dragging 2 fade animations for each one, and then I'm going to come back and edit these. Great. So keep in mind, our fade in is going to go up to 100% with no delay. Our fade out is going to go to 0% with 0.2 second duration and a 0.1 second delay. So it's always good to name groups or your actions. This is button 8, so it's based off button 8's tap. Fade it up to 100%. There we go. Fade out. Based off button 8. Point 2 is perfect. And then 0.1. Button 7. Zero. It's important to keep in mind which button you're linking to, because you don't want to tap on 2 and have 5 illuminate. Say this out, 0.1. There you go. 4, tap. Three. Just a few more. Oops. Got. Fade this out. Looks like I accidentally dropped some extras in here or some in other buttons. Nope, just extras. So again, just to double check, fades in to 100%, no delay at all. And the fade out is going to be to 0% with a 0.2 second duration, a 0.1 second delay. Okay, that's not what we want. There we go. Now each one works. So now on this keypad, we have the option to hit cancel and it takes us back. So we're going to do something similar to what we just did. We're going to create a button, only rather than an animation or a fade animation, we're going to add a move animation. So we'll just create a new layer. We're going to place it here, make it transparent. Place it here. Let's rename this to cancel button. I'm going to place this inside of here, just inside this layer. And then we're going to add a tap interaction to it. Let's make this a little bigger. So we're going to come back to the slide to unlock container. Add a move animation to it. And we're going to call this reposition on cancel. It's going to be based off of cancel button tap with duration to final value. And we're going to move the horizontal center, which is how we've been referencing this most of the time, just back to 0. So when you push it, the horizontal center is going to be all the way over here at 320. So we're going to move it back to 0. We're going to do an ease out quadratic. And this one is actually going to be 4 seconds. It's slightly slower than the other ones we use. So now when we tap it, it moves us back over. Now you see that we have the background. The background doesn't automatically fade. So we're going to have to add that. So we're going to come in here to the wallpaper, or fade it in again, and we're basically do the same thing. Only this time we're going to do a fade. We're going to do fade out on cancel. Same thing. It's going to be based on the cancel button's tap. Make it fade to 0. It'll stay linear, but it's going to be the same duration as our move. So now we're over here, click cancel, and it just fades right along with the drag. So it still fades normally with our manual drag, but now if I hit the cancel button, it automatically goes back. In a later video, we're going to create the emergency call panel. But right now, since we're focusing on this, we're going to set us up to be able to get onto that panel. We're going to do it the same way that we just did this cancel button. So we're going to create a new layer, make it transparent, and we're going to position it right over this emergency button. Just rename this emergency button. Place it right over here. Same thing, give it a tap animation, and then back on this shell container, we're going to add a move animation, and we're going to call this move right with the emergency. So this is going to be based off the emergency button tap with duration to final value. Just to make this a little easier for us, we're going to move the left side to 320. Ease out quadratic. And just like our last one, duration of 0.4 seconds. So if you see that when we move over to this, our wallpaper, the blur black doesn't blur out. On the iOS 8 one, when you do that, it almost instantaneously fades out and goes back to the normal background. So we're going to create that real quick, just like we did with the last one. I'm going to come in here, add a fade, and we're just going to call this fade out on emergency. It's going to be based off of the emergency button's tap. We're going to fade to 0. I'm going to do this as linear, and we'll leave it at 0.2, and it's probably quick enough. Let's refresh this. So now when we come over here, it goes away. Now, when we have our emergency call panel, it's going to cover this, so we won't see it. Just imagine this right here, but this is exactly how we want this to work right now. So looking back at this, what we're going to do, just one minor change, is fixing this top swipe. So previously we had moved it to the top of it to -8. We're actually going to move it to -10. That way the animation time's perfectly the same. I apologize for that. Just a quick recap of what we've covered over today. We've recreated the paging effect in an attempt to allow for independent animations to occur as we do that. We've created fading backgrounds based off of positions and created some independent buttons based off animations and timing. We've also created hidden buttons that will position an entire panel, or buttons that will create or hide certain layers. So on the next time we're going to create this emergency panel. It's going to be a pretty quick one. That's going to involve some animations, timed animations based off of almost what you can imagine as keyframes, and creating other panels alongside of that. After that's going to come the medical ID. So look for the next video, and thanks for watching.